What's up, YouTube? It's DarkSpyro here, and I hope you're excited for these holidays. Wait a minute. Holiday season? 1 second, please. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from DarkSpyro here, everybody. So we've got another Buster Blader profile for you, and I have one thing I want to share with you all. If you couldn't tell from the title of the video, this is definitely a Blue Eyes profile as well. So I have a little surprise. 'Tis the season to be jolly, and of course to share when you can. And this year, to celebrate the holidays, I have a special gift for you guys to help get everyone into the Christmas spirit. And since this is a new deck, once again, I decided to make a new playmat for you all. If you want a chance to win this playmat, all you have to do is leave a comment below of what your favorite Blue Eyes card is, and of course make sure you're subscribed, and you'll have a chance to win this brand new Blue Eyes Buster Blader game mat. And I try to read all the comments anyway, so I'll be picking one public subscriber, and the winner will win this game mat for Christmas. And of course, I'll be picking the winner on the 15th of December, so keep your eyes peeled for an announcement video, and make sure you comment on this video and this video only to win this mat for Christmas. So be sure to leave a comment so that you have a chance to win this mat for absolutely free. And with all of this out of the way, let's dive on into another monthly Buster Blader profile. And of course, this is a Blue Eyes version.
You said I couldn't get to you with Blue Eyes. I can with this! Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon!
Let's kick this deck profile off with the Blue Eyes engine first, and we're going to have 3 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon. Of course, this wouldn't be a Blue Eyes deck without Blue Eyes White Dragon himself, and you can kind of get away with 2 copies, but I don't want to miss targets. We have 2 copies of Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon. This is also why I like having 3 copies of Blue Eyes, so I can get away with playing at least 2 copies of Alternative. It's a great special summon, and it puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. If this was a pure variant, you could probably even play 3 Alternative. We also have 1 copy of DarkSpyro White. This card is an oldie but a goodie. It's great for removing back row, and Buster Blader is not a fan of back row, so DarkSpyro White is very clutch. You can also bring this out pretty easily with the White Stone of Ancients. Again, if this was a pure version, you could play 2 copies of this, but since this is a Blader version, 1 copy of DarkSpyro White. One of the most important Blue Eyes cards, Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon. So Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon allows you to add either a ritual spell or a polymerization from your deck to your hand, and then in the end phase it allows you to add a level 8 or higher dragon monster from your deck to your hand. So it's pretty easy to get out there too with the Stone of Ancients, but keep in mind you can't use those effects if you do not have a Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field or in your graveyard. I wouldn't play multiple copies of Abyss Dragon, plus it's kind of expensive, so you only really need 1 copy of Abyss Dragon for this variant. And our main deck boss monster, Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. So since our Buster Lock puts our opponent into defense position, you can just, poke for game with Chaos Max. And if you have Abyss Dragon in the graveyard, you can banish it, and then Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon will have 5,000 attack. And then of course he does double piercing, resulting in 10,000 damage. That's it for all of our level 8s. Let's go into the level 1s next. So our main searcher for the deck is Sage with Eyes of Blue. Sage actually searches our searcher, which is Buster Whelp, and it searches either Stone of Ancient, Stone of Legend, or even Effect Failure. It's very clutch card for this deck, and with Mausoleum it brings you into a 2-card combo. The whole point of the Blue Eyes version, in my opinion, is to take advantage of Sage with Eyes of Blue, so definitely play 3 copies of this card. So our toolbox card, and this actually helps us go into a lot of our combos. We got 3 copies of the White Stone of Ancients. For the majority of our combos, we rely on the White Stone of Ancients to actually get Abyss Dragon out there, or maybe even a Blue Eyes then an Abyss to make sure that Abyss resolves. It's also incredibly useful for recurring back any of your Blue Eyes monsters back to your hand, or even Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon back to the extra deck. So I would play 3 copies of this for sure. And for another combo extender here, we have the White Stone of Legend. I find this card is very useful even if it's just at 1 copy. Plus you can keep recurring it back with something like Guard Dragon Pistia or World Legacy Guard Dragon. 1 copy of the White Stone of Legend is perfectly okay with me. And before we go into the Buster Blader core, we have 1 copy of Effect Failure here. You actually don't need to play 2 or 3 Effect Failure in this deck. You can search it off with Sage or with Wararthbow, so I don't want to accidentally open on too many copies of Effect Failure, and since it's super easy to search this card, I can just kind of bring it to my hand at will, so 1 copy of Effect Failure is perfect for this deck. Moving on into the Buster Blader core finally, we have 3 copies of Buster Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman. Of course, in any Buster Blader deck, this is the most important card. It searches just about everything you could ever need. And with how many searchers we have for this card to search other cards, naturally you want to open with this card, and there's a bunch of 2-card combos in this deck based around this, or just to find this card. So of course you're going to want 3 copies of Buster Whelp. We have 1 copy of Dragon Buster next. Dragon Buster Destruction Sword is one of these cards here that you can play 2 or 3 copies of this if you really want to take advantage of Cards of Consonance, and maybe if you want to play Belize, but just for space reasons we're only playing 1 copy since you don't actually need to play multiples, and opening multiples is not very good either. And to wrap up the core here, we have 2 copies of Buster Blader and 1 copy of the Retrain. This ratio is perfect for this deck. You can try and bump another Blader in here, or maybe play the opposite, play 2 Retrain and 1 Buster Blader. And we're going to go into the last few extenders before we go to the rest of the deck. The first one being Omni Dragon Brotar. If you go Heraldic Seals and you already used Abyss, you kind of want another target, so Omni Dragon Brotar fits the bill. And yes, he may not be a tuner, but he is a level 1, so we can still use War Arthau on him. And he's also a dragon, which is also great. Next, we have his older cousin, Mana Dragon Zernatron. I've gone more in depth on this card a couple times in past profiles, but a quick rundown. He's like Brotar, but for spells and traps. Also, his most important utility here is that he's our dump target for shooting Riser Dragon, and his effect doesn't just work from hand, it works from graveyard like Brotar. It is fairly nice to get a prologue back though, and sneak attack your opponent if you didn't activate it that turn, so 1 copy of Mana Dragon Zernatron. And the wacky uncle, we got 1 Galactic Spiral Dragon. I'm kind of disheartened that he only comes in a common, since this card is super good. While this card is in your hand or graveyard, and if you control 2 or more light and or dark dragon monsters, you can special summon this card in defense position, but banish it when it leaves the field. Also, during your main phase, you can turn all monsters you currently control into level 8. That's not too bad. You can use it as a trade-in target and then bring it back from the graveyard anyways. We're also playing 1 copy of Chaos Dragon Levianeer. You'll be taking advantage of this card pretty frequently, especially with the Melody of Awakening Dragon. And our last monster here is Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon. This card can easily be special summoned, but that's not really why he's here. Chaos Emperor lets you grab any of your banished cards back. When this card is in your Pendulum Zone, pay 1,000 life points, target the card that you want out of your banished zone, destroy this card, and it gets sent to the extra deck because it's the Pendulum monster. Then you add that target to your hand. That's it for the monsters. Let's move on into the traps. The only traps we're playing are for our Buster Blader core, so we have 3 copies of the win button here. Prologue of the Destruction Swordsman is so great in so many different situations. Even if you don't have a Buster Dragon in your extra deck, if you have one in your graveyard, you can still resolve this card so long as you have the cost in your deck. 99% of the time, the cost you're going to send for this card along with the Buster Blader is this card right here, Destruction Sword Memories. You can get away with playing 1 copies of Memories. I've seen a bunch of decks doing that, but I don't mind opening with Memories and say another Destruction Sword card, even itself. That way you can bring in a Buster Blader monster out there as well. That's it for our traps. Let's move on into the spells next. We got 3 copies of the Melody of Awakening Dragon here. By simply discarding a card, you can add up to 2 dragon monsters with 3,000 or more attack and 2,500 or less defense from your deck to your hand, and this card is not once per turn. So you definitely want to see 3 of these, even in a Buster Blader version. Moving on into the draw engine, we have 3 copies of Trade-In here. We're playing 11 level 8s in our deck, and most of them are searchable off the Melody of Awakening Dragon, so Trade-In becomes absolutely free in this deck. Plus is a 54 card monster, so we want to dig through it as fast as possible. So to go with that, we have 2 copies of Cards of Consonance. We're playing 8 level 1 tuners in this deck, plus 3 copies of Sage with Eyes of Blue, and War Arthau and Mausoleum of White. So yeah, Cards of Consonance is actually pretty fresh in this deck too. I wouldn't play 3 because there's not as many targets, but you're still going to want at least 1 or 2 in this deck. We got 2 copies of World Legacy Guard Dragon. By using Buster Whelp and World Legacy Guard Dragon, you can go into Link Rebo, special summon Buster Whelp back, go into Pisty, move Pisty over, bring back Buster Whelp, all just off of the 2-card combo of Whelp and World Legacy Guard Dragon. Not to mention the prologue you probably added off of that normal summon. To help search our level 1s, we got 2 copies of War Arthau. Even though we're not playing Quick Launch, I still find War Arthau is incredibly useful in this deck. It's good for just adding like another copy of Sage or even an effect failure. This card is definitely worth playing even if it's just that 1 copy, but try to squeeze 2 in here if you can. For some back row hate, we got 2 copies of Twin Twister. We don't really need the back row hate, and you can take these out, bring it down to a 52 card deck. If you run into, let's say, a Mystic Mind player in game 1, you won't have to scoop immediately because you might have Twin Twister set. We have 2 copies of Return of the Dragon Lords. I usually just play 1 copy of this card now, but in Blue Eyes, especially with the amount of level 8s we have, oh, this card is so fresh for special summoning, and the protection is amazing, so I'm going to take advantage and play 2 copies of Return of the Dragon Lords. For our 1-ofs, we have 1 copy of Ruins of the Divine Dragon Lords. This card is a continuous spell card with a mandatory effect that any monster is special summoned while you control a level 7 or 8 dragon has its effects negated until the end of the turn. It is an if effect, so your opponent will most likely chain their effects to this card, but they may not be able to activate a lot of their cards if it's not, like, say, a normal summon or a special summon effect. You need to be careful because it can be a double-edged sword, so time when you use it. While the floodgate effect is nice, why we're really playing this card is because you can send any face-up card you control to the graveyard to special summon a Dragon Lord token once per turn. So if you can, say, pop this card with Twin Twister, add it to your hand because it has a recursion effect, all you have to do is send a level 7 or 8 dragon from your hand or face up from your field to the graveyard to add this card back, activate it again, send a face up card you control aside from this card itself, of course, to the graveyard to special summon another Dragon Lord token perhaps, and I think you know where I'm going with this. To continue on with our 1-ofs, we have 1 copy of Mausoleum of White. You can play Terraforming and another copy of Mausoleum of White. I was doing that for a little while, but it's not the most important thing in the world if you have this card, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's super nice to be able to normal summon twice with it, but personally, I don't like it if I open with 2 Mausoleum of White, because that's just horrible. And if that does happen, you now have a useless Terraforming in your deck that you may accidentally hard draw later. You can still try that out, and maybe even with another field spell like Dragon Ravine. I'm okay with 1 copy of Mausoleum of White. We have 1 copy of 1-for-1 here. We have a boatload of monsters, so why not be able to special summon any level 1 for free, and it's good with Wararthal, of course. 1 copy of Chaos Form. This is here obviously for Chaos Max Dragon. And the last card in the main deck is Destruction Swordsman Fusion. This card is an instant win in a mirror match against another Blader deck. This card is also very great for unbricking your hand and setting yourself up for, say, a Protector Whelp combo. Aside from this being an auto win against another Blader deck, it has its other utilities, so I would at least play 1 of these. Starting off our extra deck with the Link monsters, we have Link Karibo. Link Karibo is self-explanatory, but thanks to Ruins of the Divine Dragon Lords, we can turn Link Karibo into a level 1 dragon token. You may not think that's very useful, but it's actually super important if you want to bring out Hieratic Seals, when obviously Link Karibo is a Cyberse, not a dragon. We also have the 1 copy of Guard Dragon Pisty here. This card's here for obvious reasons, and we don't even need Striker Dragon or LP to activate its effects, so pretty clutch having World Legacy Guard Dragon. It's also pretty nice that Link Karibo has a downwards pointing arrow, so this card's pretty easy to go off with 1 World Legacy Guard Dragon. For the Link 2s, we have 1 copy of Protector Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman. If you play Buster Blader, you need to play this card. I'm going to say it over and over again. This card is clutch. If you don't believe me, then go check out this combo tutorial that I posted, which was a rocket version. If you guys want to actually see a combo tutorial for this deck, then let me know down in the comment section below. We have 1 copy of Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. So if you don't get the White Stone of Ancients to special summon your Abyss, but you do have a Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field or in your graveyard, you can simply use Hieratic Seals of the Heavenly Spheres to bring out Abyss, and because it was special summoned, you can activate its effect that way. And during the end phase, you can still add Chaos Max. Not to mention that it's Heavenly Spheres, it also spins a card your opponent has, and it can also special something like Omni Dragon Brotar if you really need to. The last Link monster here is Crystron Halqifibrax. Like I said, for Protector Whelp, this card's incredible for Buster Blader, and I showed you in the combo just how useful it is. We're also taking advantage of his other effect, where you can banish him on your opponent's man phase and bring out a Synchro Tuner monster, such as this fine card right here, Shooting Riser Dragon. This is a perfect segue into our Synchro monsters here. Shooting Riser Dragon helps Synchro Summon on our opponent's turn, so you can Synchro Summon out like a Borreload Savage Dragon, or in this version, a Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. It'll help you bin monsters such as Monodragon Zernatron, who is the intended target, but you can still send any other monster. Our other level 7 Synchro monster here is Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. We usually tag out into this card with Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, just in case they have something super powerful we want to spin it back to their extra deck or to their hand. For the Synchro 8s, we have 2 copies of Buster Dragon. Hands down our most important Synchro monster here, and because Prologue is an awesome card, we can bring it back from the graveyard no problem. Without Buster Dragon, we would need to be running something like DNA Surgeon, so Just count your blessings and be grateful that this card exists. Our last Synchro 8 here is Borreload Savage Dragon. You can swap this around with Chaos Ruler the Chaotic Magical Dragon if you want more draw power in your deck. Personally, I like having that negate option. Since we are going to have a couple of Link monsters in our graveyard through the combo, I like taking advantage of that and putting another Omni Negate on board. If I want to swap out for the Xyz package, which is in the side deck, then this guy's usually the first to go for Chaos Ruler. You don't really need Savage, but I would rather go into Savage than Chaos Ruler with Shooting Riser's effect. For our Synchro 9s here, we have one copy of Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. This card stops Tri-Brigade in its tracks and Pendulums of course, because the first line of text on this card says neither player can special summon 2 or more monsters at the same time. Of course, this card also has a well-known Graveyard Negate effect, and it can tag itself out into another light dragon synchro monster. And typically the one you tag out into is Azure Eye Silver Dragon. This card's synchro summon effect is actually clutch because it makes it so that your opponent cannot target dragons you control with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by card effects. So if you didn't know, Prologue destroys Buster Dragon in the end phase, it doesn't send. So if you have Azure Eyes out there, it prevents the card destruction of Prologue, so you can just keep your Buster Dragon out there for free. But that's it for the Synchro monsters. For the fusions, we're only playing 2 fusions, and they're the same guy. We got 2 copies of Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. This is our boss monster of the extra deck for sure, especially with no Dragoon. And when we have our Buster lockdown going, bring out Chaos Max, it's game like 99% of the time. You can play 3 copies, but there's no extra deck space, so I'm telling you right now, nothing really worth taking out to throw in a third. And we're going to move on into the last extra deck monster, which is number 38, Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy. I usually just run this card in the extra deck no matter what, even if I'm not playing most of my Xyz package. His spell negate is great, and you can protect your other cards in the battle phase. If they declare an attack on any monster, you can attach material and make them attack him instead. Considering he's a 3k beater, that's usually not something to sneeze at, so unless they're bigger, they're gonna lose their monster.
That's just about it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you really enjoyed it, please be sure to smash that thumbs up button and maybe leave a comment down below for what profile you want to see next month. Make sure to comment your favorite Blue Eyes monster, and one last time, if you want a chance to win this mat, make sure you're subscribed and leave a comment down below what your favorite Blue Eyes monster is, and the winner will be announced on the 15th of December. So as always everybody, I hope you all have a wonderful day.